Hello, everyone. My name is Mike Holland, and I'm excited to meet you all as the new Director of Workforce Development Strategy at the Greater Boston Chamber of Commerce.
Woo, yeah.
Thank you. And let me emphasize new. Today is officially day 2 for me.
Woo.
So, hello from the deep end. In my previous role at the Boston Private Industry Council, I had the pleasure of attending several of these Apprentice Network events just like this, and I'm excited today to actually be a part of it. So for those of you who are new to the network, welcome. The Massachusetts Apprentice Network was created just under 2 years ago in partnership with the Greater Boston Chamber of Commerce, the Massachusetts Business Roundtable, and Accenture. What started then as a pilot program to bring the apprenticeship model from the trades into corporations has expanded beyond our expectations. And it's thanks to partners like Another Age Production who have helped educate us on apprenticeships and help expand the network. I'd like to give a special thank you to Tyler McWilliams and Andrew Eldridge for hosting us today. Thank you. Claps are welcome. And for creating the concept of this event, I'm excited to hear more about how to expand apprenticeships into the media and marketing space. I hope you are as well. So, to kick our conversation off, I'd like to introduce today's moderator, Andrew Eldridge. We have this long bio and background about Andrew, and he's like, just forget the whole thing. So I just want to welcome Andrew, and I will let you introduce our panel. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, and thank you everybody for coming to the studio today. And if you're watching this online and somewhere, thank you for tuning in. I just want to again thank the Greater Boston Chamber of Commerce for putting this together, as well as Tyler for organizing it with them and kind of getting this all here, because I think we have some pretty cool things to talk about today. So again, my name's Andrew Eldridge. I'm the COO of Another Age Productions. I'm here with Chris, Abe, Amy, and Rihanna. And we're going to be talking about apprenticeships, internships within the creative media world and the creative media landscape. Just real quick, I'll just kind of give my little point of view of this sort of thing. I think traditionally, at least for myself, you know, when we talk about apprenticeships, you think kind of the traditional sort of crafts within electricians, plumbers, masons, things along those lines. But I think what we do here with obviously within the creative industry is just as much of a craft as it is a creative endeavor. And, you know, when I was thinking about this, I'm like, you know, it brought back like Siddhartha in my mind. I'm like, oh my God. I'm like, you know, knowledge can be conveyed to people, but wisdom has to be taught or wisdom has to be learned. You have to have that sort of hands-on experience. That's what needs to occur. And I think that's what can be applied here within the creative industry. And so I'm excited to get into this conversation with Loop Lab and Brighter Boston about how they structure and sustain their programs, and then how we're defining certain terms when it comes to apprenticeships and internships, get into some of the nuts and bolts with the goal of translating this. If this was something you wanted to set up or you wanted to roll out, you'd at least have a basic place of where to start, a basic understanding of how these things work and where to go. And so we'll just go around here. If you could just introduce yourselves, your name, what you do, and about the organization, okay?
Good afternoon, everyone. I am Christopher Hope. I use he, him pronouns, and I am the executive director and founder of the Loop Lab, which is a nonprofit organization that serves young adults of color and women and other underestimated populations in Greater Boston to enter careers in the media arts industry.
I'm Abraham Lopez, he, him pronouns. I don't know if I can still say, but recent graduate of the Loop Lab apprenticeship program. And as of right now, I am a freelance director.
Hi, I'm Amy Raymond, the program director for Brighter Boston. Brighter Boston is a workforce development program. We focus on backstage work in live events. We serve youth and young adults age 16 to 25. We have a high school program and then a career program for non-college track young adults.
Hi, my name is Rihanna Graciani. I'm a mentor from Brighter Boston. I have went through all the tracks of Brighter Boston, and I am a lighting, audio, and video freelancer.
Awesome, great. Thank you so much for introducing yourselves. I'll start with Chris real quick. So you founded Loop Lab. Tell me the story.
All right. How much time do you have? So just a little bit about me. I have a background in audio production. I earned that background doing ministry in the city of Cambridge at a church called Pentecostal Tabernacle. In addition to that, I was a radio DJ for many years, and I was at the time, a graduate student at Harvard Divinity School doing ministry. And I wanted to utilize what I was learning as an audio producer, a DJ. I had a show called Hip Hope Radio on WHRB at Harvard Radio. I wanted to utilize that in a way to empower my community. And for a lot of young adults that I was seeing struggling, after they graduate from high school, many of them just did not have a lot of creative outlets or opportunities in their lives. And it was sad to see a lot of folks, unfortunately, get into gang life, drug dealing, and other things that we see that are common narratives about folks that are coming from low economic spaces. So I did this pilot in the early 2010s, and it just really gained traction. And a huge shout out to Cambridge Arts, which is the department for the city of Cambridge that deals with the arts. Lillian Sue, shout out to Lillian Sue, who's the director there, said, you're doing something really amazing, and I know it's not official, but have you ever thought about maybe grant writing for it? Have you thought about making this a formal opportunity for young adults in Cambridge and beyond? And so in 2017, I went into the streets, whether it's Mattapan, Dorchester, some of the harshest parts of Somerville, Cambridge, and I interviewed over 250 young adults from the ages of 18 to 30. And I had very direct questions to ask. What kind of opportunities would you want to see in your community? What kind of skills would you want to learn? I even, at the time, I was working full-time at a workforce development organization. And in my time off, I would have gift cards, and I would just hit the streets. I'd go to where they were smoking marijuana in the park. I would go to, they probably thought I was crazy. I was tracking them down. I was going to after the basketball game, they're just drinking water and just chilling. I'm like, hey, can I, talk to you for 15 minutes? And out of those, early kind of, gathering of information, I was, astonished on how amazingly bright, and I shouldn't have been, but how amazingly bright the demographic is, and how they are very aware of what they need. They're very aware of what they need to succeed in life, but the reality around that is they don't feel like they have the agency to do so. The two common themes I heard amongst all of the different questions that this demographic wanted greater economic opportunity for themselves and their families, and they wanted greater creative outlets to express themselves. And so that was really the origins of the Loop Lab. By the grace of God, I was able to grant write for $250,000, and I received that from Art Place America in 2017, which is it was a national grant-making body. And we were off to the races. I hired a program manager. We continued to talk to many of the demographic to really form and inform a program, and also talk to employers. What kind of skills were they looking for in media and video and audio production? And from there, it's just been accelerated. We now have 3 locations, a downtown Crossing location. We have a studio on Binney Street in Kendall Square. We work with companies like Google, Audible, Another Age, Element, a couple of other major studios that they actually hire our youth that graduate our certified apprenticeship program. We're certified through the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. And we also have a high school program, so now we're in BPS. We currently have a residency at Tech Boston Academy, and we're growing that and scaling that even further.
Awesome. That's quite impressive. I'll move over to Brighter Boston. So I'm sorry, did you found Brighter Boston, so can you tell me a little bit about the origin of Brighter Boston and how you got involved?
Yeah. So Brighter Boston was started by a Boston public school teacher, Dan Jensen, 10 years ago. It's our 10th anniversary this year. And Dan is the technical director and lighting designer still at Boston Arts Academy. And he was working with young people and seeing them graduate and not go into these technical fields that they had spent so much time, developing skills in. And so he just thought that there should be a connection between what they were doing in school and jobs, and he started bringing them along to gigs. And it's really easy to just kind of pull someone in as you're working and let them get their hands on the equipment. The students really took to the amount of trust that he was giving them. And just, he saw them grow, and since then, it sort of has organically grown into what it is today. We have interns in lots of places across the city: ART, the Huntington, House of Blues, MGM, Boston Symphony Orchestra. Rhea has worked most of these places, so that's why I'm looking at her too. Berkeley, Northeastern, New England Conservatory. Our program is about 40 interns, right now working in these various places in paid internships. So that's kind of the origin and trajectory. I've worked in live events for a long time. I'm a technical director. I did some corporate stuff, museum, theme park and museum design, and found my way to Brighter Boston because I was also teaching in Boston Public Schools, and just, young people really respond when you trust them with real things. And I was finding that in my teaching too. And when I heard about Brighter Boston, I just loved it. And it was what I was doing too. And so it made a lot of sense to hop in and do the work here too.
Awesome. Rihanna, how did you hear about Brighter Boston? How did you get involved?
Dan Jensen was my lighting teacher in Boston Arts Academy. I was a freshman not knowing what to do with lights, and we were doing a show. And since then, he's kind of taken me under his wing, and he told me about Brighter Boston when I was really serious about doing lighting and stuff. I would say it has grown a lot since lighting, because he started doing lighting, and then audio was introduced, and then film was introduced, and then it just became into this theatrical space where kids are able to choose different tracks on who they are as a person.
Gotcha. And then I'll flip it over to you, Abe. How did you get involved with Loop Lab?
I found them actually through social media, thankfully. And I found them on my actual last year of eligibility for them. I found them when I was 26 years old and saw them actually when I was 25. And I was a little skeptical just because it sounded too good to be true. So I definitely waited a little bit, kept reading on it, and then I saw they opened back up for applications again when I was 26. And I just thought, let me give it a try it out. And then fully hearing how they pay for you to do the experience and do the program. You get those accesses and resources that I honestly didn't have any literally opportunities to. I just had that want of being in the creative field, right. So fully diving into that.
Awesome. So when you were talking to Chris, and we had talked about this in our pre-call too, about kind of defining a few terms, and so you have certified apprenticeships, and you have internships. So can you just tell what's a certified apprenticeship?
No, so certified apprenticeship is a process through the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, specifically the Governor's Office of Labor and the Workforce. And so that can, once you go through the application process and they do a vetting, if you're accepted, a big part of that is tax credits that you can take advantage of from the state to support apprenticeships, and also funding, state funding that can pour in. And so we are certified and been certified since 2019. And it's allowed us to have a national conversation and a state conversation about registered apprenticeships. The reason why the Loop Lab in particular is very much an innovative organization and innovative program through our apprenticeship is that there's not a lot of registered apprenticeships for media arts. I think we're maybe one of two in the entire Commonwealth. So it's not necessarily a traditional workforce pathway, right? When you talk about apprenticeships for HVAC, there's a very singular pathway for that. Electricians, there's a singular, you get certified once you get to 2,000 hours, and then there's a pathway. For the media arts, you could be doing PA work, you could be working like Abraham, who did his placement at a cultural arts center doing live streaming, photography, and videography. You could be working at another employer placement that we have is Black Math TV, which does animation. So, but they're very different kinds of jobs, right? Yeah. And they're not just in those spaces learning one thing. So with apprenticeship training, the idea is that those 2,000 hours, you're getting an idea of all the different kinds of positions that are at play. So you may work as a PA and for a couple of months, but then they're going to have you in the front office. Then you might be doing admin work, or then you might be out doing field tech work. So it really is going to vary depending on the actual placement. Whereas with internships, it's very specific to the employer and very specific position, right? So if you're an administrative intern, you're going to be doing a very singular kind of set of things. And I think that the apprenticeship model is very helpful in media because the more skills you have and the more cognizance around the different opportunities available in the industry, the more employable you become, the more attractive as an employee you become to an employer, right? Okay, they know how to do Blackmagic Cinema, they work with those cameras. They know how to use Sony cameras. They understand lighting and the practice of lighting techniques. They understand so many other kind of aspects. They know wiring cable, even setting up a rack for servers. So I think giving young adults that exposure to all the different permutations of the industry, not just a particular placement, is really critical in this.
Yeah, I think also just from obviously myself working within this industry too, it's like the storytelling aspect. When you know all the sort of different roles, that are on there too, A, you have respect for your crew. Right. And B, you know how to use that to your advantage when crafting story and when telling a story as well.
I want to add this point too. We're talking about 18 to 26-year-olds or even 40-year-olds. We don't, those who are exposed to this industry don't know what it is that they want to do when they come in, right? Yeah. Most of our young adults come in wanting to be rappers or something else. And it's only in the program itself that we, one, create cognizance, so we broaden their myopic viewpoint of the different kind of possibilities that exist. Did you know you could be a sound designer? I know you want to be a producer, but did you know you could be a sound designer for podcasts and you actually make the music and sound effects? Did you know you could be a sound designer for video games? So we expose them to working professionals that look like them, that come from similar backgrounds and communities that they come from. And through that, we also train them with the skills needed. And I think that's important because, for Abraham, I'm sure you did not want to become a director when you first stepped in the door. Like, you probably didn't even know there was such a thing as a creative director like that. I don't know.
It was a focus of mine. It was just more so it was detailed in the route of fashion. It was definitely that route for me, where I was even doing that in Urban Outfitters and Suit Supply, working in those routes, being a stylist and kind of eyeing it of I can do that in this route. I didn't know what it looked like in the media arts route, or just in the kind of full-on creative director in the arts as a whole realm of itself. And I feel like that kind of showing it through the program and through conversations with you and just kind of, I guess, bugging your ear about it and just kind of breaking down different realms of what creative direction looks like in this, what it looks like in this, what it looks like in this, and kind of working it into my, I guess, trying to leave my footprint in the Loop Lab, whether it was working it into making hoodies for the Loop Lab or trying to break down different avenues of ways we can kind of add to the apprenticeship programs in those kind of ways.
You mentioned something that's important. So we have apprenticeships, internships, which are very specific. It's for one role, one thing. Mentorship is critical. So we have young adults that are coming from underestimated spaces for various reasons, various realities, and many of them need a boost in their self-confidence. They need small victories, and we create that through really scaffolding the required skills and also confidence that they need to be really amazing 21st century professionals in media. And the way that we do that is one-on-one coaching sessions, allowing them to shadow our studio, because we also operate a studio that does other kind of work like photography, video services for other companies. And so for them, they get an opportunity to just watch us work in addition to eventually getting paid to work in that studio. And so I think that boosting up their confidence, spending time with them, and understanding that we're not just training for skills, we're also responding to human development, not just workforce development, right? So for us, we have a behavioral health specialist on board who can work with them. We were thinking about financial management. So we have Eastern Bank come and do 7 modules, 3-hour modules on how to do your budgeting, how to budget for a project, especially if you're going to be a media arts professional. You need to know this, how to create proposal, how to do pitch presentations, how to present your work. Like at the end of each year, they make a short film with Audible, who's a corporate partner, and they have to talk about their work into the crowd, and to our funders, to supporters, and that takes time, it takes practice, and it takes opportunity. And these are opportunities that normally this demographic of people just would not have.
Awesome. I'm going to get back to mentorship in a little bit, but I wanted to talk with Amy about how Brighter Boston structures your internship program. How are you getting new people into the program, and then what is that sort of, start point and end point?
Yeah, so most of the students in our program are from Boston Public Schools. So far, it's been referrals. Our participants actually, usually by word of mouth, get people to us. We have a wait list, almost always. And, they're coming in, and we're kind of looking at them as individuals. We really get to know them. We do a 2-week skilled training in the summer. They can tell us which track that they want to try out: lighting, audio, video, scenic, and they go in and do the skilled training with us, and we're like talking to them and getting to know them, and then we also know the sites, and so a lot of it is very tailored to each person, just to make sure that it's successful when they're out in the field. For our high school program, we're really trying to cultivate deep professional relationships. We put them at one site, and they're getting to know one mentor very well and building their skills in kind of a familiar and safer environment. Our career folks, we are sending them out to a bunch of different sites, music venues, theater, and just letting them try a bunch of different things and build up that professional network. We also do one-on-one coaching and the financial training, a health and wellness training for workers in the industry. So, kind of similar to Loop Lab, and just like making sure that there's, young people need rounded supports to be successful. So that's kind of what our internships are.
And so are your internships are paid too, right?
They're paid, yeah.
Got it. Can I just ask like a general question about like funding in general? Because like we're a small business ourselves, and so like how do you structure that funding? Like, is it grants? Is it donations? Like how is both organizations funded? I'll start with Brighter Boston.
Yeah, mostly grants and donations. I try not to pay too. Our executive director. Oh yeah, I forgot. Yeah, so the employer, a lot of our employer sites, they pay the intern wages.
Got it. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, gotcha. And Luke,
Yeah, for the apprenticeship aspect of it, our employers hire our apprentices, and so they're offsetting the cost of that. As far as the actual training that we do and development that has to be funded, so a huge primary aspect of that is with private and public foundations. Huge shout out to all of our foundation supporters and partners. In addition to that, donors and donations are also widely supportive. And then we add, as a social enterprise part, we actually generate close to $250,000 now a year just in our studio work. And so that self-generating aspect of what we do, where we're providing, really social conscious digital storytelling product for other organizations, companies like Google, Audible, but also smaller organizations. We're currently working with the City of Boston and Mayor Michelle Wu's office through her arts and culture department on a series of videos. So doing a lot of that work also generates revenue for our mission and creates opportunities for someone like Abraham and others to work on set and to actually build out their portfolio, even after they've graduated. And so we're also one of the largest employers for Black and brown talent in the City of Boston because of that. We hire not only our apprentices and alumni, we hire from a broader range of contractors. And so, yeah.
Gotcha. What are some of what makes a good apprentice? What is like what's the expectation when you're coming in? Like what makes that person be? How are you defining success, I guess, with it too?
I'm biased, but I feel like what a good apprentice should say.
I guess I would say being open, curious, because kind of like they both kind of hit those areas of, in a way, knowing what you want to do, but not being so stapled and 10 toes to that. Like I feel like that played a big part in my experience in the program. Was kind of knowing I want to have the avenue of being a director and being in those routes, but also being open to the areas of understanding audio, understanding video and photography, and understanding pretty much all aspects there are to the job. So I guess of just knowing that of being someone of many traits and just having that aspect open in your mind. And I feel like that basically very much plays a key part. I definitely have seen some apprentices who will say they had not a bad experience, but it didn't fully live up to what they had in mind because they were so 10 toes on, I want to do this, I want to do this, I want to do this, and weren't really understanding to the other parts of it. Or say like when we did audio, they're, okay, cool, I want to do music. They're fully into it, and now we're in video now, and they're kind of like, all right, cool, I don't want to do this. And they're just like, what do we do now? When do we get back to this part?
Got it. And then when you're looking to bring people on, are you looking for, people who are going to be open, or do you even if someone does have that sort of singular view, and try to say, hey, why don't you come in and see if you can kind of broaden that a little bit?
Yeah, during our admissions process, there's multiple touch points. So they go through 2 interviews. One is a 30-minute, one is an hour with other people, including an alumnus. And then there's a third piece, which is they actually take a class. So we do like a series of classes that really kind of model what an actual class would look like, but it gives us another reference point, data point to kind of see how they work and operate in context to a cohort, to other applicants. And so anyway, with that being said, we are looking for, even if you have a singular vision or a singular idea of what it is that you want to achieve, the individuals that we're really looking for are those who also have an open mind. You don't know what you don't know. And oftentimes we see people come through the door at that age and they feel like they know everything and they know the world. And if that's the case, then maybe the Loop Lab is not for you. Because there's so much that we're going to be hitting you with in terms of a very intense 2,000 hours. Like, it's a lot, and it's a big commitment. And so with that, we need individuals that, and we're also investing a lot, right? Financially, energy-wise, capacity-wise. So I think that is, yeah, exactly. There's such a huge critical part of it. I'd love to hear what Brighter Boston.
Well, I was actually, Brianna, I saw you kind of nodding your head with some of the things. Like, did you go in with, like, a singular vision, or did you kind of want to take it all in? Like, how did you approach Brighter Boston?
So originally, like I said, it was mostly lighting. So like, and I was at the time, I wasn't a big lighting person. I was like, they're nice, but like, I don't, but as the tracks went on and more tracks got involved with Brighter Boston, I don't know, like I got well-rounded with all of them. I recently I was the lighting board op for the Nutcracker, and that was like really cool. And I didn't like me not liking lighting like 4 years ago. I would be like, how am I even here? But like, I think like the drive to doing anything and exploring any possibility is really important, and being passionate about everything and everything that you do. So.
And then I was going to say, like, as far as when you're looking to bring someone on, are you looking for a specific type of personality, or are you looking for someone who wants to experience it all, or singular? How do you bring people on?
Yeah, we don't really filter by the experience they're looking for necessarily. We did develop the kind of our biggest criteria is just we want our participants to be willing to receive feedback and try to grow. We found that that's kind of the line, if they're not at a place where they're ready to sort of dive in and, talk about their work and talk about things that they could work on to improve, it makes it a little tough. So, that's kind of like our only real filter line, I think. But we have a lot of differences in how people are approaching the program. We have a lot of people that, come in kind of wanting to get different things out of it. And I think that it makes it, a rich experience, and the community is a really interesting, cool community, just based on what the kids are passionate about.
Gotcha. I was going to say, do you feel like interns, apprentices bring like energy, innovation to the media industry, like in what you're doing at Brighter Boston? Like, how are they kind of pushing it a little bit?
Yeah, like obviously their creative ideas are just incredible. There's my experience with young people has always been that, creative ideas don't have an age. You can be talking to a 15-year-old that has a genius idea that you're like, this is a professional level concept that they're developing. So, they're like creative wise, there's, tons of opportunity. But I also just think, this age of human, I think that in the back of everybody's mind, we know that they're going to just totally change the workforce, but it's even better. Like, it's just better. Just the kind of hope and optimism and enthusiasm. They're coming in hot, and it's good.
Got it. I was gonna say, Chris, like, has Apprentice come in and kind of like said we should do this and like altered like the course of like a program that you might have?
Oh, of course. The short answer is yes to that. I do want to share something, though, about, at least from my perspective, human nature in the Western world. When you're a child, and you're talking, you're asking your mom or dad all these questions like, what's that? And why is the sky blue? And you're asking these questions. After a while, your parents are going to say, shut up, right? Like, they're going to be like, and then you carry that into school, right? And it's the same thing. It's just like, not to say shut up, but some permutation of that. And so when you're young, you're always curious about the world you inhabit, your body that you inhabit, the spaces that you inhabit. And that curiosity, I think, at some point just dies in us, or many of us, not all. And I think that at the Loop Lab, it's about creating a safe space where someone like Abraham can come in and say, I have some amazing ideas. And I want, and I think that you want to hear it. And he actually does a pitch. Like the other day, he just pitched an idea for a Loop Lab podcast idea, right? And we're going to do it by the grace of God. But again, it's just like really putting people in a position where they can ask questions and feel like they can contribute to the mission. Because at the end of the day, I'm not going to be doing the Loop Lab forever. There's going to be their generation that's going to carry the torch that much further. And one example of that has been one of our alumni, Tevin Charles, graduated. Again, he was chronically unemployed, someone who was in trouble with the law, went through our program, became an entrepreneur, and also created our high school programming. So the work that we're doing in Cambridge Public School and also BPS now, he started that. And it's like the Loop, right? It's like the new generation coming in, taking over, and handing it down to the next generation after them. So definitely yes.
And to follow up with that, I mean, where do you see apprenticeships evolving into? Like, is there like something that it's going to be like what's the next iteration of this?
Typically, if you're talking about like the certified pathway, it would be a journeyman and journeywoman, right? Like they're in the industry, and the question then is like, when they're in the industry, are they going to remember, right, all of the challenges they had, but also the opportunities that they had, and are they going to change the system where they can to make sure that other people get those same kind of opportunities like them? One of the things that opened the door for me after graduating high school, I had a very troubled high school experience. But long story short, I went to a transitional year program at Brandeis University. And just by doing that year, they really helped boost my SATs. They paid me for the program. They really boosted my confidence. And that allowed me to apply to Harvard and other places, which thankfully I got in at Tufts University. And that was an opportunity for me to eventually start what I'm doing. So I think the same thing. Once you are in a position of power, once you are in a position of influence, someone like Abraham, when you're at that space, what are you now doing for the next generation? How are you going to ensure that black and brown folks, for women, for other underestimated populations in this industry, how are they going to have the opportunities to thrive, survive, and to feed their families?
That's awesome. That's great. It's the same thing with Brighter Boston. Like, what's next on, or what is the next iteration of the internship at Brighter Boston?
Yeah, so we wanted to create this loop. Is in the loop.
Hey.
Yeah, where the interns that are coming in, are building their skill, and then if they want to enter into the career program, they're getting this tailored experience, and then they move into our mentorship program, and they're working with young people. We say the mentor program, like being a mentor. What is it? You just.
I would say being a mentor really changed my vision on how I see young people, because like as a young person myself, like you think of like, oh, kids are younger than you. Like, you kind of also get into that adult mindset of like you can't listen to a kid, or like what the kid is saying isn't like, valid. But working with younger people just, I don't know, it brings a light and sparks a generation. I feel like young kids just need somebody to believe in them. I think that's the biggest part, where somebody like sat there and just told you, I believe in you. That does so much. And I was a mentor this summer for the video program at Brighter Boston, and watching the kids come up with a whole broadcast by themselves. I watched and I assist, but they did it all by themselves, and that was like one of the most magical things I've seen.
So, yeah, like making more moments like that. But I also think apprenticeships are unique in that, you know, they're giving people just this sure path into employment. And I think it's a challenge to create those spaces for people where they, you know that they are in training, but they also are getting paid for the training. And the more that we can do that, the more pathways for people that aren't in the industry now that should be in the industry, you know, that's how we're gonna get those people in, is to create these like paid paths through internship and apprenticeship, and it's like critical, it's necessary.
Yeah, I mean, and this is something we were just on earlier today in a production diversity call. You know, when we're all the different. It's a part of what we were doing, follow through from a November conversation that we had, and they were talking again about apprenticeships and how to roll that out within our industry. You know, from an industry-wide level, and talking about ways to fund it and get funding and move that along, and then even for us as well, even from our conversation that we had back in November with all the rest of the production companies, of trying to build those lines within your budget so where you can be able to support apprenticeships and have paid internships and do those type of things. I think it's super critical in order to do that, because then you're getting people who, you know, can focus and can kind of be a part of that and throw themselves into it. So why don't you real quick ask you, Abe, what is kind of next on your sort of on the horizon?
I honestly personally hate that question, but it's a plethora of things, actually. There's more working with the Loop Lab, trying to expand it and make it, in a way, as I like to say, make it cooler. And make it cool and keep it cool. And kind of keep in the sense of having something that young people want to kind of come to, and in a sense where understanding that it's kind of a way in a nest. It's something that you can always come back to. You can go and do those other apprentices, say at another age, say at Element, at those spaces, but you still always have that space to kind of come back to the Loop Lab and, hey, I have this idea, I have this thing I want to work on. Can we try this out? And you have the Loop Lab as those resources, and you have other apprentices as those resources to try to get those things out and kind of do those. So I feel like that's the biggest thing. And then, of course, there are personal projects. There are things like that to kind of work on for myself. But I feel like those are probably the biggest thing, is just how can I make the Loop Lab cool.
Yeah, it's a laboratory place to experiment, right? Yeah, awesome. I want to open it up to audience questions. If anybody has a question for any of the panelists up here. Anybody? Yes. And here, I'll run around with the mic. There you go.
Hi, could you guys talk a little bit about how you guys work with corporations or businesses on those partnerships, so that once the training happens, they are getting that hands-on experience with groups like Another Age Production?
Yeah, thank you for that question. I know for the Loop Lab, what we do is we do a relationship building, a lot of relationship building, a lot of development in that kind of way. So we're not normally engaged with any partner one kind of way. Yes, they are agreeing to be an employer for our apprentices, and oftentimes, we volunteer to support initiatives they're doing, or some of them actually join our board. There's multiple touch points. So with that being said, I think if we're just focusing on the actual relationship in terms of the apprentice, so normally what happens is that you get to a point in the conversation early on where they agree to say, you know what, we believe in the vision, we've seen the numbers, we see the overview, we see where this could benefit us. Let's do an MOU, memorandum of understanding. And you need that ultimately because you have to report that with the registered because it's a registered apprenticeship. But you also, it's an agreement between organizations that we really want to work together, and we see benefit in doing that. Once you have that MOU, then it's really off to the races. These employers are understanding they're taking our folks on as employees. There's opportunities for them, and also it's not like the Loop Lab just steps back. At that point, we're still there for the young adults. We're still there for the apprentices. They have to come back for continued professional development, even while they're on the job site, because that's a huge part of this. And of course, we even do trainings with many of the employers, because a lot of them have other kinds of early career employees that they're looking for some support with as well. So I hope that answered the question on my end.
Yeah, so similar, we usually have an initial call and describe what we do, and then there's an MOU, and we do a site visit and get to know the employer very well. And then we have an internship manager that goes on site with our interns the first day that they're there. They do an orientation so that they feel comfortable. The places that they're walking into are giant. They're kind of you go into shows that you're going to see, and you walk in and you're like, wow. And then, we're sending 16-year-olds into these places, and they're like, whoa. So we make sure that the internship manager goes with them and is there to support them on their first shift. And we have surveys that we give pretty regularly to employers and to the interns just to make sure it's a right fit. And the internship manager is always in communication with the sites, and we're always checking in. They do site visits pretty frequently. And we also started kind of a bi-directional support this year. We did a mentor training. So, they're the experts in their field. And then we did a mentor training to support them in how to work with young people. So we're also training the trainers. And we've also started some master classes. A lot of our training happens at our partner sites. And so this year we started some master classes. We did a House of Blues master class and stagehand skills. And they were loading trucks and building risers. And the crew of House of Blues was there. And, we're all working together to train our young people. And there's just a lot of learning and excitement happening. And that's, staying very closely engaged in a lot of exchange of skills and ideas is a way to make the relationship, more successful for the interns and for the organization.
That's pretty cool. I never thought that unloading trucks would be like a cool thing, but I guess if
well, especially at House of Blues, you're like
Yeah, I
right
know,
under
no
that
kidding.
Fenway sign.
Exactly.
And,
I'm like that is pretty cool. Like, I mean, that's like part of the experience, right?
I want to add an element to this that I think is important to name. I think that when we look to partners, there's a mutual relationship and there's a mutually beneficial one. And one of the things that I want to name is that it only works if the environment within that organization is not toxic or doesn't have the kind of toxicity that our young adults that are coming from, again, underestimated spaces are going to really hit a brick wall. I mean, that has happened before, and we've actually had to pull someone out of an apprenticeship because there was a lot of racism and sexism happening internally for that company to kind of wrestle with. So I think if an employer is really going to take this on, they also have to be honest about where they are as a staff. A lot of diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging trainings are out there. There's a lot of rhetoric, a lot of funding about it, but a lot of it is performative. And I think that for the Loop Lab, we really seek partners that are authentic, genuine in that. They see the desire and need for more diversity in the digital storytelling space. And obviously, if their actions follow up with their words, then it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah,
Great to hear.
it's really important to identify mentors that are invested and capable and, really interested in putting in the work to be a good mentor.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Is there another question? Yes. I'll bring the mic over to you. Here you go.
Oh, thanks. Really want to talk into it. So I know the technical side and the training and the mentorship, but if you're starting with young adults up to 25, do you have like a toolkit or a class or something for the leadership part or the self-protection part, or how to like, you can only accompany somebody so far, but if they're in a toxic environment, both ways, not only like to protect themselves, but also how to carry themselves,
Right.
themselves, or do an email, or how to answer, or be on time.
Yeah, that's a
Selfish.
fantastic question. So the first half of our apprenticeship program focuses on just, again, skill building, getting familiar with the equipment, obviously some of the soft skills that we discussed. Once they're onto the job site, however, they come back every 2 weeks for a full day of professional development that tackles exactly what you're talking about, like how to deal with sexism on the job and how to deal with microaggressions when they come up, right? And how to do so in a professional manner. How to negotiate your salary, right? And that being a hard thing for someone at that age in their professional career to really tackle with a supervisor. So that's, and then maybe Abraham, you can kind of, talk about some of that too. Or,
Yeah, some of the professional development we've done is, like you said, you tackle some of just kind of how to communicate professionally in those spaces. And like a big one we touched on was negotiating salaries and just kind of that advocating for yourself pretty much and just moving professionally in those spaces is a big one that we handle on, and pretty much that back end of it while you're doing your fellowship. Like I know a big one for me was that kind of those reach outs and kind of follow up emails and just kind of how to do those professionally. Just kind of how, hey, I want to do this. I know we talked about this, or just that reach out in the sense of, hey, we connected here, but how do I reach out to you connecting again in the past couple of weeks or so? Just kind of those kind of reach outs are kind of certain things that we've worked on and put a lot of emphasis on. And then it's one of those that kind of shapes and molds based off what we want, because there were also those times of once those couple of weeks kind of went, it then was, okay, cool, do you guys have anything in mind, or is there anything that you guys are struggling with that we were able to bring to our instructors? And then they were the next following weeks, okay, cool, hey, we'll focus in on this, and this is how we go about this issue that we had. If they felt it needed to be a full class thing, it's a full class thing. If it was just a kind of one-on-one thing, all right, cool, we can kind of take care of that in private. If it is something kind of more serious, we kind of handle that with Chris and then kind of figure out how to go about that. So there were different avenues to create that more of, now that you know these things, these are how to implement these things in professional ways.
Is there another question from the back? Okay.
Hi, so I did freshman year at Tech Boston, so I'm so happy that you're there. When I attended in 04, we didn't have a music program, so I'm so happy to hear that you do now.
We're here.
Yes, and I also attended Bryan High School, and Pick literally got me into Harvard, where I stayed and worked for 4 years as an intern.
Awesome.
So
Yes.
Dan Cuddy was the man over there, so thank you for your work at BBS, all of you. So my question is around apprenticeship, mentorship, and how do you handle, say, a nonprofit organization who's not exactly on a fast track doing the work, but needs the work from the apprentice? So would that organization reach out to the Loop and say, hey, we're looking for an apprentice in advertising. We know what our end goal is. We can afford to pay them, but we don't exactly know the nitty-gritty of doing the work. And is the Loop someone that we can look to not only let us help us find an apprentice, but also give us the mentorship piece of it, where we can partner with someone else who can watch over this apprentice. So.
Yeah, no, that's a fantastic question. The answer is yes. I mean, the good thing about being kind of a smaller social enterprise organization allows us a lot more flexibility. Some of the larger organizations, no, they already have standard operation procedure related that could prevent working from some of the employers that you're referencing. But we acknowledge that, yes, a lot of the bigger companies want to take on some of our apprentices, but what about the smaller, more community-based organizations that need the same kind of support? And we've done that. Like, we did an apprenticeship at the Powell Arts Center in Chinatown, which they ended up going in on a grant with the National Art Strategies, and we're enabled to kind of provide a supervisor, even though no one had kind of supports. Even Abraham's apprenticeship was at a multicultural arts center, which supports multicultural demographics, but they necessarily had not had anyone that could mentor him, so we ended up having to figure out a way. So the answer is yes, we can try to figure it out. We want to support. we are here. Please reach out to me, chope@thelooplab.org.
And,
go
go
ahead.
ahead, no, go ahead.
I also want to add, there actually, I feel like I'm a good example of kind of what you were saying in the sense of kind of formulating what that looks like as it happens. Because when I was doing my fellowship at the Multicultural Arts Center, it was actually the first year of it. And so they really didn't have anyone in the department that they were putting me in with handling video management. So it was kind of just me kind of figuring out, okay, cool, we can do this, we can do that with it, we can do these kind of things, and kind of implementing the ideas and kind of creating my work for me in a sense, to then kind of, once my fellowship was over, it's kind of something we can now have implemented that it's kind of continued in and kind of continue going on and going in ways where I was able to, okay, cool, we can attach this to the social media side of it. We can attach this to the bigger side of it, working with the art director, and I was kind of figuring out those ways of what it could look like and essentially kind of formulating my job with them in figuring that out. So then it kind of also got to branch into also working into the routes of all the things I wanted to do with marketing and with media.
Yeah, in a similar way, you know, if we have a site that wants to have an intern, but, you know, might not necessarily have the resources, we do lean into our mentor training, but we've also developed, you know, Ria's one mentor of a pool of mentors that we have now that we can contact if they need people on site. Some smaller organizations don't have an in-house lighting designer, but they want lighting interns. So now we can reach out to alumni or other professionals that have jumped into wanting to mentor and make the connection between the two.
I'll be reaching out to you about lighting design for the studio space. We need a new aperture.
Shout out to the lighting in here.
800.
This is pretty cool, though.
Let's put it into the grid.
Did a great job.
Awesome. Is there any other questions before I? Well, I mean, feel free to approach and talk afterwards, but I just wanted to thank you, everyone, for showing up today, and for those who kind of tuned in and started to watch. I also want to thank, of course, Greater Boston Chamber of Commerce, Amber and Celia and Mike and Tyler, Chris, Abe, Amy, and Rihanna for being a part of this, and thank you so much. And Jared and Soji over there too, doing the switch in, and Alyssa. Appreciate everyone's help. Thank you so much for coming here.